The 24-hour series visits Portimao for the third time in its history. The Hankook Portimao 24 Hours and the Radio Show Limited network of channels are here once again to bring you live coverage from trackside, from our little booth that overlooks the main start-finish straight, the giant grandstand and the pit lane below. And we've already had two sessions. First of all, pre-practice a little bit earlier on, just after lunchtime, which was a 2-hour session. Then 2 lots of 45 minutes for qualifying. So the grid is set already for tomorrow's race, a midday start. But we now have 90 minutes of night practice to look forward to, and this is where all 28 cars can head out onto the track together. A reminder of where we've been already and where we've still got to visit in 2019. Dubai kicked us off for the 24 hours in January, and then the meat of the European season began in March at the end of that month for the 12 hours of Mugello in very picturesque Tuscany. Then to Spa in Belgium for the 12 hours there, another split race across the 19th and 20th of April. And at the end of May, a return to Brno in the Czech Republic for another 12-hour event. This is the first 24-hour race of the European season then, and there's one here in Portimao. It is a twice-round-the-clock event in every sense of the word, with no pause in proceedings after midday tomorrow. The same goes for the 24 hours of Barcelona at the end of August. And we finish the season in November in the United States of America at COTA, Austin, Texas. And that'll be the third visit there as well to bring the season to a close. It's Joe Bradley, Paul Truswell and Johnny Palmer in the commentary box, and Diana Binks is in the pit lane for us, getting all the stories.
Everyone's getting ready, as you just said, Johnny, to go out here. Conditions are a little bit different. Obviously, we're going into night time, so very different. Atmosphere down here, temperature has dropped, hence having to now wear a jacket. But a lot of the drivers are getting ready to get in the car. And if you could just see up here in the pit lane, some of them are coming onto the pit apron, still haven't got their tyres on. So they're, taking the time before they get out there on track. But there's a great atmosphere down here. Everyone's quite excited. It's like the start of a race, really. They've been off the track for a couple of hours and you could just feel the momentum building. And of course, this is a great time of the evening to be in the pit lane.
Thanks, Di. We're not quite at full Eskimo setting for you yet because the bobble hat's the next layer. I don't think the bobble hat's required headwear for Portimao, Joe.
It's windy enough.
Is it?
It would certainly keep the hair in place, Di. The bobble hat.
True enough. Why did you think it was starting to get out of place there?
No. Well,
Careful what you're saying, Joe.
That's exactly what people.
That was the insinuation.
It's just.
I do like those very stylish headphones, though. That Di's.
There's only Binksy could carry off gold-plated, and they are really 22-carat gold-plated.
They are. With the letters D and B carefully engraved.
One on the left, one on the right. It's R and.
Well, that'd be L and R, wouldn't it?
But
no, she's not. She knows which way they have to go on. The D and the B. It's a bit like when Shirley Bassey turns up at Glastonbury with the gold embossed wellies. Anyway, where are we going with this? I have no clue.
You haven't even mentioned the high heels, so let's move on.
OK. Right, well, what are we going to see in tonight's session? Because it was an intriguing qualifying, particularly in the GT series. The track was getting faster and faster as it cooled down, basically. And there are no tyre restrictions in the Hankook 24-hour series, so you can just keep bolting on brand new rubber. That's exactly what the teams with plenty of dosh were doing. And you had to stick around till the end of GT series qualifying to know who was going to start on the front row.
I think Di was right with excitement beginning to build down there. There looks like veritable parties going on. I have got a mission for Di, but I'm going to wait to hear what Trusses has said, because he's keeping us in suspense. He's being out on an inquiry, and he's got info, and he won't tell us what it is. So it might be the answer to my question.
No, we'll do that. We'll do that in a little while. We'll get the session underway first. And as Johnny was saying, an hour and a half of night practice doesn't count for anything in terms of grid positions. They are already set. Interesting, you were saying about the qualifying that we had, that qualifying wasn't as quick this year as it was last year. Last year, Antonin Borger, remember him? In the SPS Automotive Mercedes, he was quickest, and he was down quicker than we saw that time from Klaus Bachler in the Porsche. Now, one suggestion that was made to me at the beginning of the weekend is that the sausage curbs, which have been mentioned on a number of occasions, have contributed to slower times. Not because they've changed the track at all, merely that they are deterrent to people cutting the corners at all, because you can't take any risks at all with those sausage curbs. As soon as, you know, you don't even want to get a little bit close to them, just in case you do a mistake and misjudge it.
And also with track limit restrictions like sausage curbs, it kind of stifles the momentum that you have at certain parts of the track, and that's the whole point of it.
I liken it to being in one of those multi-storey car parks where, again, they have quite high curbs. So you're always a little bit careful when you're in a multi-storey car park, or you know, sort of just negotiating your way into those things, just to make sure you don't
scuff an alloy, do you?
You don't want to scuff one of your wheels. So you know, it doesn't actually mean that the road width is any narrower. It just means you take a little bit more care, and I think that's perhaps what's been going on here.
So although the sausage curbs aren't winning a lot of fans this weekend, they're doing their job pretty well, aren't they? Because it means that everyone's adhering to the track limits.
Absolutely right. And the purpose of that is not just to get them to adhere to the track limits, but it's also to keep them from bringing on the gravel and the dust from the edges of the circuit and bringing that onto the track. Because when you run wide, inevitably you bring a little bit of dust and gravel onto the track as you come back onto the track. So they've killed both birds with one stone there. They've kept the track cleaner for everybody, and they've stopped people from cheating and running over the track limits. Although there are still, in fact, during that last qualifying session, quite a few cars were pinged for exceeding track limits on the exits of corners, particularly turn 1 and turn 15, the first and the last corners on either end of the long start-finish straight here at Portimao, which is a very undulating straight. As you come out onto it, you sort of think, oh, we're just going to go up the hill here and we're across the start-finish line, and then you keep going, and then suddenly it dives down again. So it's a really up and downy switchback type of start-finish straight, and that whole resonance of switchback driving is then copied throughout the rest of the circuit, but not in a straight line round corners left and right.
I think this track was built when the rules were in place, although I'm not sure whether this is a grade 1 or a grade 2 circuit, but there was a rule that was put down whereby the pit lane has to be dead flat, like spirit level flat, as is the wing pit lane at Silverstone. However, that rule wasn't in place when they built Silverstone originally, so the heritage pits, it's sort of flat because it's an airfield, but you know, the old Grand Prix tracks, I was going to say Spa, but even Spa now is more or less level, the Grand Prix
the
bit.
Nürburgring's got a slope.
The Nürburgring has got a slope, yes. And the older F1 tracks you'll find generally are, but if you're building a brand new track these days, then the stipulation is that the pit lane's got to be dead flat. But almost it's bookended with a steep incline out of 15 to get to that plateau, and then it drops down into 1 at the other end of this straight. So it makes it very fun.
It's like a tabletop. The news that I had, guys, was in relation to the number 500, which is the new Mercedes AMG GT3. A car that is here in development, and basically that car is being unleashed. Now, I'm not sure exactly to what extent it's being unleashed, or what I should say is I'm not sure exactly how the car has been stifled in the previous practice and qualifying. But now the 500, the team have been allowed to unleash it, unlimited. They can do what they want, and I think we're going to see perhaps the full potential of the number 500. Kenneth Heyer is at the wheel of the car at the moment, and I think he's already posted a lap. Yes, he has. A 1:47 is the time.
Yeah, that's an out lap. That's a time from pit out to crossing the start-finish line. So although it's a time, it's not a time that's going to count in any sense.
Well, in qualifying, they were 3 seconds off Klaus Bachler's time, and off the best Mercedes, 2.5 seconds. So you're looking at a mid 1:47 that they've been able to do with 50 kilos strapped on board. Obviously, also the restriction in filling the car up during the fuel stops doesn't count during the qualifying session. Slightly off track there, I noticed, was Kenneth Heyer between turns 1 and 2.
Well, they said they weren't limiting the car. I'm sure they didn't mean unlimited track limits as well.
Probably not.
Because he was way off there, wasn't he, keeping the momentum of the car. He's gone quickest in this session, but like you say, Johnny, the time of 47.3 is still somewhat away from what we saw in qualifying.
They actually went quicker in free practice, I noticed.
He's building up, though.
But quicker in free practice than they did in qualifying, which is a bit strange. But there we are, 1:47.2. It depends which drivers were put in the car, I guess. and we had Charlie Putman initially at the wheel of that car, and after that, I actually can't remember who was in the car in the for the 500 machine. One thing I can tell you is that it's running virtually no ride height on that car, because it is in classic Mercedes style, scraping the ground and kicking up sparks, which is very, very dramatic in this level of lack of ambient light currently. Also, I do like the illumination of that car in the grille. It looks like the engine is on fire, frankly, with that red band of LED lights just behind the enlarged grille on this GT3, the AMG GT3 Evolution.
I'm sure it is causing consternation with every fire marshal as it goes round. It's like, oh, it's
fire, fire!
It's just the
No,
illumination.
it's fine. That's just how it's going to run at night. Well, again, this is, you know, getting the marshals. Many of them are local to the Algarve International Circuit. They're getting them accustomed to how cars are going to change through the course of the 24 hours as those LED lights, some of them very dramatic indeed, are turned on.
Yes, I mean, I'm quite sure at some point during this session as well, we'll have a practice nighttime code 60. So if we talk about a code 60 at some point in the about halfway through, once it's properly dark, it is nearly dark now, but once it's properly dark, then I'm pretty sure we will have a practice code 60 session.
And I don't think there are any illuminated LED boards here, are there, like you would get at a Formula One track?
No.
So is that the classic flying a flag and shining a torch on it?
Yes, they also have some reflective boards.
Right.
Whether they've got those as well, I don't know, but there'll be purple boards which can be held out.
Which the headlights will pick out.
An opportunity for the drivers to see what they look like, and for the marshals to get a feeling for how those work between them. Just put that GT3 Evo car into perspective. It's running at a minimum weight, and although you were suggesting the restrictors taken off it, it has to run at 1360 kilos, and that compares to a normal GT3 Mercedes running at 1310 kilos, and runs with restrictors of 34.5 millimeters, and that compares with a normal Mercedes of 35 millimeters, so slightly smaller restrictors, and a much heavier weight on that Mercedes. We can hear from the pits, Diana Binks.
Yeah, down at Pro Sport Performance, Di.
I'm with Rodrigo Guillon, who's from the Pro Sport team. Rodrigo, the car came in, we saw some adjustments being made to the car, but what's the plan for night practice tonight with the team?
For night practice, first Mike will drive 20 minutes. After him, it will be Akil. And after Akil, it will be me. I will drive like 35 minutes, a long stint, because we have a little bit problem in the second practice and in quali. So I don't drive in this moment a lot. So I will drive now more on quali.
And obviously you have to get in your allocated nighttime driving tonight. You get your allocated time in the car as well. So getting as much seat time is important for you?
Yeah, we must be on the night. We must absolutely be consistent, like in the day. And, it's my first time here with the Aston, but my second time in this track. Last year I drove with Porsche Cup, so I know good the track, and I drove in the night also last year, so it will be fun.
How much do you have to change your driving style at night because of the difference in what you can see?
Sorry?
How much does your driving change at night to adapt to the conditions?
I don't know yet. We'll see with the chef team. After the night practice, we do briefing to see how many times per driver. We'll see also, of course, each chrono of the pilot, who is the best at second.
So collecting as much data and information as you can.
Sorry?
Collecting as much data and information as you can tonight.
Yeah, it's very important, because in the first quali, we have a lot of oversteer. After it was also not so good, the car was not so good. So they changed a little bit the spoiler. Spoiler was, we'll see if good or not. I hope so.
All right, thanks for chatting to us.
Thanks to you. Bye-bye.
Rodrigue Guillon of Belgium, 36 years old, and Rodrigue, as he says, first 24 hours in the Aston. He was at the Dubai 24, but that was with QSR Racing School when they were in a Mercedes GT4, and it's little things like what you can see out of a different shaped windscreen, and the A-pillars may come down at a different angle as well, and all of a sudden, you know, you throw Nightfall at it and you think, I can't see that corner anymore. And which marshal post can I see? None of them.
I tell you, the biggest thing here is, Johnny, when you go up the inclines, your headlights are pointing at the sky.
Yes.
And then you, all of a sudden, you literally can't see until your car comes back down and starts going down the other side.
Yeah.
And then, oh, that's what it looks like. But as you're going up those hills, you can't, unless you know the place and you get into your rhythm, it's a very tricky place because of the undulations.
Also, we must remember that the seating position in these racing cars is often a lot lower than you would find it in a road car.
Yeah.
And you'll hear stories from Daytona whereby, you know, you're going through the banking and you're just looking up in the top left bit of the windscreen to just identify the road in front of you. And this place undulates so much, you have to work out, where do I need to be looking on the screen to see where the next bit of track's coming from.
There's a great story that Jochen Mass told me. Hey, that's a name drop, isn't it? That Jochen Mass told me about Daytona and about nighttime driving, and it's quite relevant because of the shadows that are created by the cars around you and by the little bit of illumination we've got. And I forget the year. I think it might have been the 1979 Daytona 24 Hours, and the door fell off the 935 Porsche he was driving, and they then continued. And as he continued, because of the peripheral vision was completely different without the door, he kept thinking that he had a car alongside him.
Right.
And it was his own shadow coming around upon him as the light changed as he went round the banking. And he was thinking, oh, there's somebody there. Oh, no, it's just my shadow.
It's just me.
But he had to take it seriously because at one time there might be somebody coming by.
Yeah.
Intriguing.
Whole new meaning to the phrase being chased by your own shadow, doesn't it?
Indeed.
Quite literally, yes.
I mean, I think Rodrigue's point, I mean, he has been here before, although, as he was saying to Di, he raced in 24 hours here last year, but in a Porsche. So, as you say, Johnny, a different experience to driving in the Aston. But I think the other aspect of driving in the nighttime at a place like Portimao is you instinctively have to look ahead to where the track is going, and you need to know where the track is going in order to know, because your headlights are pointing down the hill here and you're headed up that hill over there, you've got to know to look to the left, to look up that hill to see if there's a car spun or there's a yellow flag up there or something like that. So you've got to be thinking ahead quite a long way, but in the nighttime beyond what your headlights are going to be illuminating. So you've got to know where the track is. So all part of the nighttime driving experience.
Also, quite a bit of this track doubles back on itself,
Exactly.
so you're going to get glaring headlights of cars on another bit of the circuit, and you're thinking, do I need to be over there? Oh no, he's on that bit, okay, and I'll catch up with him in a second.
Yeah, no, exactly that. And of course, there are some street lights illuminating bits of the circuit, and again, you'll see those in your peripheral vision whilst you're going around a loop which is not of the bit that you're on. So again, you just need to be aware, but it's all practice, and that's, let's say, part of what this nighttime session is about.
Yeah.
Kenneth Hire in the pits now with the 500 Mercedes, and I've got a feeling he was handing over to Rick Breukers, but we'll confirm that as and when the car goes out again.
Okay, well, it's to one of Rick Breukers' old teams, current teams. We head to now the Red Camel Jordans.nl camp. Diana Binks has managed to find Klaus Kresnik from the 101 car.
He's just jumped out of the car, taken his helmet off, so I can have a quick chat with him. Klaus, you managed to put a few laps in tonight, night practice, early start, obviously. How did you find things, and what are the conditions on the track like?
So the conditions are more or less the same as in the afternoon. Sure, the temperature has dropped, so the track has still a good grip and so on. So it was a nice, easy go, especially for me, because it's still not dark, so, but still it was cool to be out.
What's the strategy for the remaining of the session?
Okay, now the strategy is, to get all our colleagues out to do the minimum laps, and also especially the newer ones. We have one driver who has not so much experience, to get him really into the dark, that he gets the experience, especially what he will experience tomorrow night.
And are you all happy with the car? Is the balance and handling good for all of you?
Yeah, we are really happy. We had yesterday some technical issues. We lost one wheel, but that was sorted out. My team, the Red Camel Jordan's team, is amazing, so they prepared the car nicely, so we feel very confident for tomorrow.
They're a very happy team, the Red Camel team, aren't they? We watched them earlier as you came to come in from the track to drop the car. Your crew here were having a bit of a warm-up bun fight just to get the motivation going. Yeah,
more or less you can't say Red Camel team, it's Red Camel family, because we know each other for a long time, and it's a family, and so everyone appreciates it to race with them. But still, they keep some area also for private and to have fun and so on. You have to enjoy.
Absolutely, we need a bit of fun.
Exactly, thanks.
Thanks, Klaus.
Klaus, originally from Austria, but interesting from his Twitter feed, actually based in Dubai now, so that's the reason why he's done a lot of 24-hour races out there, and quite a bit of travel involved in coming to race in Europe, every month or so.
And of course, the Red Camel company, which supports obviously the Dutch team, is a Dubai-based company, and they're a tracking and transportation company in Dubai. Red Camel is sort of a play on the ship of the desert and all that kind of thing. But
like the camels we get to take everyone to the podiums at the end of the event.
I'm quite sure that Ivo Breukers has a hand in those camels somewhere. The point that he makes about the family as well, having been invited for dinner on various occasions when I just happened to be passing a restaurant which was full of the guys from the team, very much a family team, and a very friendly group of people to be with, I have to say. With a slightly unusual driving lineup in the 101 this weekend, with joining Klaus Creventic is Henry Littig, Nuno Corvo, who's the local Portuguese driver that Klaus was referring to as the driver which doesn't have much experience, but then nor has Luke Breukers, who I think is still 17. Johnny will correct me, but Luke certainly a very young man, younger brother of Rick Breukers and number 2 son of Ivo. There is a daughter as well, but I don't think she races. Anyway, Luke, then the 4th member of the Red Camel Jordans.nl team, car number 101, running at the moment in the TCR class in 4th place. Henry Littig is actually at the wheel of the car at the moment, and the best lap from that car are 2 minutes 02.723. As far as times at the top are concerned, Klaus Bachler has once again gone fastest of everybody. The number 93 Herbert Porsche, 146.312, makes him the fastest. And just to confirm, it was Rick Breukers who got into the 500 Mercedes, so got that one right. So that car back on its way now with Rick at the wheel. The minimum nighttime laps that were being referred to there by Klaus Creventic as well. Each driver is demanded to do 2 minimum nighttime laps, 2 timed laps, which may be timed as pit lane out, but then has to finish across the start-finish line. But then having started across the start-finishing line, you could finish the next lap in the pit lane. So your minimum is an out lap and an in lap. Or you can do 2 out and in laps, but you have to do those 2 laps whilst this night practice session is on in order to qualify yourselves for the race.
So yes, Bachler fastest, Rick Breukers 2nd fastest, and 140. Oh no, beg your pardon, that's a new car going 2nd fastest. Yeah, indeed. I was slightly puzzled there because I thought we'd seen the 500 car do a 147 in this session. Am I confusing that with earlier on?
No, he stood at 147.
Oh yes, I mean no, the reason is I'm in the wrong column.
Which was Kenneth Tyer's.
Yeah, I was reading the last lap column as the best lap column. Okay, so yeah, 147.3 is Kenneth's time from earlier on, and therefore I don't think Rick's gone quicker yet.
No, he hasn't, not yet.
Right, in the SP4 car.
I'll tell you who has gone quicker though, Max Edelhoff in the number 34 car collection Audi. He's gone to 2nd fastest in night practice. 146.5, only just over 2 tenths, just under 3 tenths off the fastest time by Backler. So we are seeing some competitive times here.
I think that time from Max is quicker than he went in qualifying, isn't it? Max Edelhoff in qualifying, if I get the right qualifying list up.
Luke Brokers, by the way, he was 17, but that was 2 years ago. Because he was born in the year 2000, so it's fairly easy to remember. April 2000, his birthday, so just a couple of months older than his 19th birthday now. Whilst you find that out, I'm going to head down to Di again at Synchro Motorsport. So a little bit of news on the 676 Honda, Diana Binks.
Yes, nothing major. I mean, there's quite a lot of activity going on down in the pit lane, but the Synchro team brought the car in, the 676, you can see just behind me, and I thought there was a bit of an issue, but apparently not. They've taken the car into the garage because they wanted to download some information, and it's easier to do the work that they needed to do inside the garage because of the rules, and they also had a driver change. I think Martin Byford's just jumped in behind the wheel, but the car's just come back out of the garage, and now it's back out there on track.
Great stuff, and good to see the Swindon crowd again heading back into the race. Synchro Motorsport, a name that fans of the British Touring Car Championship will remember from 20-odd years ago now.
We'll be having a Steph's mum update across the weekend.
I'm sure we will,
Johnny.
Yes.
Steph is the team manager, who kind of the operations manager for the Synchro team, and we tend to speak to Steph for any updates from the team, and
always delivered with a bit of a giggle, isn't it, from Steph?
Our mum's one of our biggest viewers and supporters, so it's only right to see how she's doing.
Indeed.
So we'll be getting an update from Steph sometime across the weekend.
Yeah, she always likes to say, "Hello, Mum."
Hello, Steph's mum.
Are you watching?
She'll be watching now.
Of course she is.
Of course she is.
Glued to every session.
Max Edelhoff hasn't gone as quickly as he went in qualifying. He did a 1:46.1 in qualifying. He's done a 1:46.5, so slightly slower. And that car in the pits at the moment, the number 34 Car Collection Audi, which has already been driven in this session by Dad Edelhoff.
Yes.
Gustav Edelhoff went out and has done his laps. Max is now out of the car, so I'm guessing that one of Ingo Vogler, Elmar Grimm or Dr. Johannes Kirchhoff are now in the car. It's a 5-driver lineup in the Car Collection car.
Yes, because Max was at Brunel, wasn't he? But Gustav wasn't, and I seem to remember Nick on the grid going, "Where's your dad this weekend?"
And Elmer Grimm's been missing for a couple of races.
Yeah.
I think he's had...
Yeah.
Has he had a knee operation?
Oh, that I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to... We'll not say that.
Yeah.
We will find out. I'll get a chat to him.
Yeah, missed the last 2 races as Elmo, in fact. Did do Bayern Mugello, but we didn't see him in Belgium or the Czech Republic. So great to have almost the old band back together at Car Collection. And Car Collection had a pretty decent, at times, Nürburgring 24. And also they had a very good Dubai at the start of the year, winning that race with an A6 Pro entry.
They've had a very busy season because in addition to doing Creventic series, they're also doing the Blancpain endurance series, I think with 2 cars. So there's a lot of racing activity on Car Collection's agenda this year. Fastest TCR division car is currently the 188 Audi from AC Motorsport, and they're in the pits at the moment. That car having been driven by Mathieu Detry in the first part of this nighttime qualifying session, an hour and a half of which we have altogether, and just over 24 minutes of which have already passed. 94
is out on track. Have we mentioned that?
No.
After the clutch change. Well, presumably a clutch change, but Tim Muller spoke to Joe earlier on during the qualifying session, hoped they might get out, but they ran out of time. However, clearly they needed just a little bit longer than qualifying allowed, because the 94 is running and already 9th quickest. So we got Herbert fastest, courtesy of Klaus Bachler, and Hans Wehrmann has now taken that car over. Also a Herbert car 5th quickest, Ralph Bone driving the 91, 93 is fastest by the way, and the 94 makes it 3 of those cars in the top 10.
And just to say, yes, you're right, Tim Muller is currently at the wheel, but initially the 94 was taken out by Jürgen Hering, so lots of the teams cycling through their driver lineup, as many of them will have planned to do. in the number 1 Aston Martin, Mike David Ortman is still at the wheel. He's been at the wheel of the car since the beginning of the session. The number 11 Scuderia Praha Ferrari, Jiri Pisaric, is at the wheel of that car at the moment and has been since the beginning of the session. Daniel Alleman has already driven the number 91 car. So different drivers cycling through their various drivers. 5 drivers as well, of course, in the 500 numbered Mercedes, which Kenneth Heyer started and did a 47.38, as Johnny said. Rick Breukers has been out and done 5 laps as well. He's done a 1 minute 47.85, so about half a second slower, Rick, than Kenneth.
These drivers that are labelled as, there are 1 or 2 of them labelled as against 2 cars. Do we think we are actually going to see drivers in 2 separate cars? I think that will be the case for Charlie Putman, because he'll be here to get points for CP Racing, and he wants to have a stint or 2 in the new Mercedes. I'm just wondering about Alfred Renauer, or whether that's more of a case of insurance strategy, you know, in case the other drivers need a bit more rest, stick a semi-pro in there in the number 94 car. But you would have to think that both Alfred and Robert will drive the 91, so maybe they do fully intend Alfred to, you know, split his loyalties across 91 and 94.
Yeah, the difference here to the Nürburgring is that in order to qualify in night practice, you only have to do your 2 laps in one car if you're driving in 2 different cars.
Yep.
Nürburgring, you had to drive in both. Just considering what's going on at Herbert, Alfred Renauer is down to drive in the 91 and the 94, but the 94 is an AM class car, whereas the 91 is a pro class car. Alfred is a semi, so he can actually step between both and kind of fill up the space, but the 94 will have to have more driving done by the AM drivers in that car. And of course Alfred is the one who's not an AM, so I suspect he will do less driving in the 94 than he does in the 91 class car. Yes, I mean, I think the 93, I mean, we were talking about this in the break, although Klaus Bachler, no doubt, very, very quick indeed in that car, the AM drivers will have to do at least 12 hours of the driving in that number 93 car.
Yeah.
And Klaus Bachler being the only pro, that means that the rest of the driving is going to have to be shared between the other 4 drivers, and they, with the best will in the world, aren't going to be quite as quick as Klaus Bachler is.
And the other one is Martin Kroll, who's down to racing, well, 2 separate races, effectively.
Yeah.
One in an A3 BMW 240i for Hoffa Racing by Bonk Motorsport, and then he moves to the number 50, which is exactly the same team, but that's a GT Series car in the GT4 category, which is the number 50 BMW M4. So again, no reason why he can't do a spell in each, and that may well be the case.
But that brings us nicely on to talking about GT4, which enables us to answer the question which Right Turn Lover posed earlier on Twitter to @RSL_studio, and to our various personal Twitter accounts, which you all should know by now. But so the answer is, because we've got 2 cars in GT4 cars. We've got the 454 Mercedes GT4, and we've got the Lippert Motorsport number 710 running as GT4 cars, but they're not running in GT4, they're running as SPX class. So what effectively it means is that they're not real Mercedes GT4s, they're if you will, Mercedes GT4 Pluses. And this also gives us the answer to the question of why Lippert are running here with a Mercedes rather than a Lamborghini. Well, apparently they were asked by Mercedes if they could run a Mercedes here and test some Mercedes equipment, some Evo equipment on the GT4 car. Basically what it means is that A, they're given a lot more boost on the turbo to use on the SPX class car. They also run a lot lighter, and Mercedes has developed a lightweight Mercedes GT4 kit, which enables them to basically have this much faster GT4 class car, which they're hoping to get homologated into GT4 for 2020. So it's kind of a bit like Mercedes is doing with the GT3 class. It's an Evo. They're trying to develop new parts for the GT4.
Diana is just talking about Herbert and Alfred Renauer. Well, one of his teammates at the 91 is Ralph Bone. So now speaking to Binksy.
Ralph, you just jumped out of the car. What are conditions like on the track? How is it evolved?
Well, it's not that dark as a night will be. So it's not really a night practice. At the moment, in an hour, I think so, we will have complete darkness. And at the moment, a lot of people are searching their way.
I mean, it's that sort of time of night, isn't it? Everyone's just getting their laps in, but obviously the track is changing. There's more rubber going down as it gets more use.
Sorry, once again, please.
I said it's that sort of time of night where everyone's out on track, there's more rubber going down and everyone's getting their laps in.
Well, I wouldn't say it like this. We changed route with the team one by one all through the night, and so now it's practice and we go down a little bit calm to avoid any collision or something else, and so to get a little bit comfortable with the night. Yeah.
Is everyone happy with the balance and the performance of the car?
Yes, the car was okay from the first moment, so we only had little adjustments through the day. So the car's okay, and now it depends on the drivers.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Ralph Bone, one of many Herbert Motorsport drivers then here this weekend. The 94 car also from that stable, and 93, which isn't in the same sort of paint scheme as the other two cars. That's the white machine. There it is, in fact, number 93, just been brought into the pits by Hans Wehrmann. So if you're enjoying our coverage via the live stream, Hans, just a very short stint from him. Klaus Bachler didn't have too many laps either. So presumably the priority down there is just to cycle through all 5 drivers as quickly as possible.
4 laps each they get. Klaus Rada was the first driver. He did his 4. Then Klaus Bachler got his 4. Hans Wehrmann has, just as you say, completed his 4. That leaves us with Edward Lewis Browner and who's the other one? Stefan Aust.
Yeah. Yep, so that's part of the plan, presumably, and then after that, they'll just park it.
So when you say 4 laps, Paul, is that what, an out lap and an in?
No, that's an out lap, 2 flying laps, and then an in lap.
Yeah, that's the way I read that. Right Turn Lover's asking a question basically about just how cold it is out there. He's saying if you sent Binksy out in her jacket in Switzerland, she'd get heat stroke, and they are 1 hour later in the day. Well, Switzerland isn't on the Atlantic coast, and you haven't got that brisk breeze, in fact very strong brisk wind, cooling things down. So even though it's pretty hot during the day, and you certainly wouldn't see Binksy in a padded coat, she's Scottish lass, remember, so she's quite hardy. She wouldn't see her out in a padded coat during the day, but certainly on an evening it's getting very, very cold. And I'm not sure what exactly the track temp is.
The air temperature was 19.
19, but it was reducing to 18, you said. But the track temp retains heat a lot more than the ambient, so it's going to take a while for the track to cool off, where we're going to see that effect, maybe tyre wear. And that's perhaps what a lot of the teams that are going to be running at the front are going to be interested in, especially the TCR cars, because the front-wheel drive cars really do use their rubber, and they're going to be looking towards maybe potentially double stinting, certainly the rears, triple stinting the rears we've seen in the past. Whether they'll double stint the front tyres on a TCR, I doubt very much, because they really do rip their tyres up, don't they? But,
the other thing to bear in mind, if you're comparing it with Switzerland, is that there's a massive hot summer currently, going through this central Europe, and just a quick look up of the temperature. The highest temperature today in Zurich, 33 degrees. We only reached 23 degrees here as a high in Portugal.
I think there's slightly more elevation change in Switzerland than there is here.
There may well be as well.
Despite the elevation change we've been going on about here. Having driven 3/4 of an hour out of Zurich and been in snow in July,
but I think that's comparing it to the current amazing temperatures we've had this summer in France, in Germany, 40+ degrees, and I don't know whether it's actually extended this far south, to the south coast of Spain, which is historically very, very hot, but it's just that in this part of Portugal, with that sometimes very cool wind coming off the sea, as Paul's mentioned. We're really only going to get to about 25, 26, even when we get to the race tomorrow as a high. But the good news is that at night it's only going to reach 16 degrees. However, it gets rather cool again with that wind, which often batters the main straight here. You don't think of that in Portugal, but it is the case. More news from Diana Binks. Have you managed to hang on to Hans Wehrmann?
I have. Hans has very kindly waited here till you'd finished your story. Not that he can hear that, of course. Hans, you only put in a few laps in the car, but are you happy?
Yeah, fine. I mean, we had to do the 2 mandatory laps just to get used to the night driving, and maybe later in the session I'll have the possibility to make another couple of laps.
Because it's not quite dark. I spoke to someone else just earlier, and they said it's not quite, pitch black yet. So we're just getting used to it, cycling through the drivers, getting happy with the balance and comfortable with the car.
Exactly. I mean, that's the purpose, and because it's not really dark yet, so probably the drivers who are driving in the dawn, they're gonna have a couple of more laps in the real dark.
Is sort of 3 or 4 laps enough to become acclimatized when the conditions do change?
I mean, you can never have enough laps to get adapted to a situation, but I mean, in general, yes. Because I mean, we are talking about 24-hour race, so it's not a sprint race. So the purpose is to get comfortable with the car, get confidence, and for that, 1 out lap, 2 fast laps and 1 in lap is okay. Yeah.
And how much are conditions changing actually on the track with the surface?
I mean, during the last 2 days, it changed a lot. I mean, depending on the temperature, depending on the temperature of the concrete, depending on the tires. So yes, I mean, the conditions have changed a lot. Yeah, I was very surprised, because it's the first time in that car for me. So I was pretty much surprised, yes.
There's always a lot to take on board, isn't there? As you say, first time in this car. It's a very challenging circuit from a driver's perspective. Then you've got the night and day situation to face, but that must be what excites you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is what is exciting, and it's also very exciting that it's really teamwork. It's not only drivers, but it's also the mechanics and all the surrounding, the strategy guys. So that makes it so interesting.
How would you describe your team?
I mean, to be honest, for me, our team is perfect.
It's a bit like my team. They're perfect.
Sorry?
It's a little bit like the team I work with. They're perfect.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Hans, thank you so much.
But in general, I mean, really, we very much appreciate the 24-hour series. It's a wonderful series. It's extremely well organized, and all the people organizing is extremely friendly.
We think so as well. But anyway, you have a great weekend. We'll catch up with you during the race.
Thank you very much.
She didn't mention
Hans
any of our
Wehrmann.
imperfections, did she?
I don't think she's ever said that to our faces, that we are anything approaching perfect.
I think the reason she said that is because in 6 minutes she comes off and she'll expect a coffee.
Yeah.
Here on the
Freshly brewed, indeed. I thought Josef Kral was about to light up the timing screen. It is a new best lap for the number 11 Ferrari and an absolute best first sector. We're talking about sectors. That's the first bit of the lap then that takes you pretty much to the braking area for turn 5. Sorry, I'm going to get that wrong forever because they've been renumbered since I was last here in the ELMS meeting. Turn 5 is the hairpin next to the rotunda. So you've got turns 1, 2 and 3 that come in relatively quick succession at the start of the lap. 4 is a tricky left-hander where we often see incidents in previous races. Very easy to overcook that and end up in the gravel trap or the runoff area on your right. And then 5 is very important, braking. It's also very important on the exit of that corner because that determines your top speed heading up the hill through the kink and into, well, the beginning of quite a dramatic ascent, actually. So we know the Ferrari's good through there. It's just a question of whether it's losing time through the other 2 sectors. But 147.356 from the young Czech, Josef Kral.
It's a pretty good race pace, isn't it? Can we say hello to a couple of people? Chris Humphreys, who's decided to take this weekend off from marshalling to get some rest ahead of 3 busy marshalling weekends. He's got the British Grand Prix, followed by British GT at Spa, and then Silverstone Classic. So good to have you along, Chris. And hello to Ryan Walker, who's starting his week off. So I take it you're on holiday or some kind of leave, Ryan. Good to have you along, keeping up to date with what's happening with us in night practice.
50 minutes to go, just under, so we are not very far away, Paul, from half distance in this night qualifying session.
Indeed, the clock counting up has got to 41 very nearly, and the clock counting down is in 49, so just means that I need to work out which clock I'm looking at. I just wanted to go back briefly to the difference between a proper Mercedes GT4 and an SPX Mercedes GT4, because I've looked up the various bits and pieces for it. A normal Mercedes GT4 weighs 1490 kilos, so very nearly 1500 kilos, whereas the SPX brand of GT4 weighs 1400 kilos, so 90 kilos less. That's almost as heavy as you, isn't it, Joe? How much are you? You're 90
I'm a little
kilos?
bit over 90 kilos, yeah.
Okay, so it's a Joe Bradley weight.
Yes, I'll get in the
difference
passenger seat.
between the GT4 Mercedes and the SPX GT4. But
that is a significant weight.
I know. Yeah,
to be hauling down and accelerating out of a corner.
But wait for this. The boost that you're allowed on a GT4 Mercedes is 1.66 bar. The boost that you're allowed as an SPX GT4 is 2.4.
All right, so you're given a bit of power to overcome the weight.
No, it's lighter. So you've got 100 kilos less. So the SPX...
I've got that the other way around.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So the SPX is the faster one, right?
Right, yes.
And it's 100 kilos lighter.
More power.
And it's got almost double the boost. I mean, 2.4 compared to 1.6. And bear in mind that boost works as the square because it's pressure. It's a massive extra, and that's why they're about 5. I think the SPX cars are about 5 seconds faster than the GT4 cars. So,
yeah. So if somebody had a GT4 car, I can't see the attraction of running it in GT4 because you want to go as fast as you can, don't you?
Well, exactly so. Except if you want to run it as a GT4 car, and then you have to have limited boost and a heavier car.
Boring. Getting an SPX.
It depends on the experience of your drivers as well, JP.
True.
Yeah, I'm putting my sensible head on here.
Yeah, I don't think there's a place for that in motorsport.
And then move. I suppose once the team of drivers that you have in the car moves forward, proves themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it depends as a little bit. As I say, if you're wanting to run it as a GT4 car, and GT4 is effectively an SRO spec of racing, which you do. The Blancpain series has their own class for GT4, and so you can't sort of choose the regulations in that, whereas in Creventic you can choose the regulation by running a lighter car with more boost. Clearly you're going to run a faster car, and you're right, Johnny, it's a very attractive proposition to be able to run a faster car. And of course you've got less opposition, so you've got a better chance of scoring more points, and for the drivers and for the team, in the overall points, they will be scoring points to add to the points in the QSR Racing School car that they've already scored this year. Lightbird having their first race in the season here, certainly with the Mercedes, they're having their first race.
I mean, I suppose the flip side is you have a GT4, you run it in SPX, you're not guaranteed to be up against other GT4 type cars.
Correct.
So, I mean, the other car in the category is a Mark II V8. How that compares on lap times, I've no idea. But it's got a 5.2 litre engine for a start, and a stonking great V8. Yes, okay, the Mercedes has got a 4 litre V8, and it is twin turbocharged, so they might not be very far away.
Yeah, the Koiza car is currently running third in SPX behind the two GT4 Mercedes, in inverted commas. I say that.
And actually 5 seconds adrift, but we don't know really, what the Mark car is giving us in this night practice session, and might well be holding a little bit of pace back deliberately, depending on what their approach is to this session. Are they trying to find a good race pace, which many will be doing?
Quite so.
Jordan Grog has just gone faster than he's managed all session, and indeed faster than the 24 Porsche has managed all session. That's the GPX racing car of the United Arab Emirates, so 8th quickest now for that car, and 5th in A6 Pro, and Charles Espenlaub putting in a good time in his A6 AM machine. In fact, Espenlaub jumps up even more places on that lap in number 85 for CP Racing. So that Mercedes becomes well, of the current GT3 machines, becomes the best Mercedes AMG GT3 and third fastest of the A6 AM. So Espenlaub going well.
Yes, and I think the other thing which is going to be interesting, Johnny, is going to be the way that the two A6 categories balance out between the A6 AM and the A6 Pros. You've currently got two A6 AMs, first and second in this session. Then the SP4 class, which is especially for AMG, new Mercedes AMGs. And then the fastest of the A6 Pros is actually fourth fastest in the shape of the number 22 Wochenspiegel Team Monschau Ferrari, which Leo Weiss has now taken over the wheel of, and having done a 1 minute 47.337, although that's a Jochen Grumbach car time, the 147.337. So Jochen Grumbach with that time makes it faster than Josef Kral. Although, as you suggested, Josef was going pretty quickly, but we've yet to see Matteo Malicelli at the wheel of the Scuderia Praha Ferrari, which is fifth fastest.
So Kral, a 147.356. How does that compare to what Malicelli did in qualifying earlier today? Let's just have a look, because it was a second fastest time, 144.7.
Yeah.
So, but again, that might well be down to the amount of fuel that's on board that car to account for the 3 second difference.
It's
and the risk that you're prepared to take in a night practice session at the end of the day.
Well, exactly so. I mean, we heard that from Ralph Bone, didn't we? He was saying how they weren't taking any risks in the traffic, especially at night time. The important thing was just to get everybody qualified. What they don't want to do is to end up at the end of night qualifying with a damaged car. You know, there's we've said already, it's quite a dense timetable, in the sense that, you know, we've got through a free practice session, qualifying proper, now we've got night qualifying, and then tomorrow morning we've got to be ready to get a race underway at midday, and that means getting the cars out onto the grid by 11 o'clock. So you know, you can't really afford to have too much damage to repair on the car, so keeping it clean, keeping it out of trouble, of utmost importance.
And I think that's after much discussion with Creventic's customers, the competitors, to try and compact the weekends into as few days as possible, because, I mean, very easily the sessions today could have been spread across 2 days, you know, with free practice on a Thursday, for example, and then maybe some night practice on Thursday night, then you do the qualifying maybe on a Friday, but it's all deliberately timetabled, so it takes as little time out of everyday lives, and you know, successful businessmen and women who come racing principally as a hobby, but you know, the more they do, the more they want to carry on, cramming in racing where possible. But yeah, the shorter the weekends, the more attractive I think it is.
Rick Breukers has finally found the pit lane. I remember it was quite some time ago I said he was taking the number 500 out for a spin. He took it over from Kenneth Heyer. Kenneth did 5 laps. Rick has been out for the best part of half an hour. So it's been a good long stint for the number 500, and they'll have found out quite a lot about tyre wear and the balance of the car, and possibly even about cooling of the car, which is one of the things that they're working on at the moment in that development Evo Mercedes GT3 car.
Jordan Groger goes quicker again in the number 24 GPX Racing Porsche, so he's now up to 4th fastest, and actually that's the fastest A6 Pro car now, behind a couple of AMs and behind the SP4 Mercedes.
Yeah, so Porsche, Ferrari is the story at the top of the Pro class. Porsche, Audi at the top of the AM class. One little message that I've been keeping on meaning to say, but I haven't mentioned it for a number of reasons. The number 11 Ferrari, the Malicelli, or the Scuderia Praha Ferrari, Malicelli hasn't driven it, had 3 warnings that it should respect track limits, and then the team manager was asked to report to race control.
Okay.
No more to be said than that for the moment, I think. But I suspect it was probably early on when Jiri Pisaric was driving it that happened. And with, what are we, 40 minutes remaining in the session, 50 minutes elapsed, we've now gone to code 60.
We have, and you predicted this.
It's properly dark. We had a number of drivers saying it wasn't properly dark. Well, it is properly dark. And again, the code 60 being observed slightly more efficiently by some than by others.
It's not come out because it's dark, by the way. It's come out because whilst it's dark, it will be good to sort of practice these things. So again, you know, pick out your reference points where, if we go code 60 in the dead of night tomorrow, where do I need to be looking for the boards that are reflective, I think, on certain posts. So these incredibly efficient headlights now that are carried by most of the cars in this race can easily pick out the reflective boards, but I suppose you've got to be vaguely looking in the right place. So that's just a question of, again, being familiar with your surroundings in daylight and now where there's not any daylight at all. It's taken a while for the horizon to become less and less lit. There's still quite a bit of light over in the distance, but the sun actually set just before this session got going, and Saturday's sunset is due to be at 3 minutes to 9 in the evening, with the sunrise on Sunday morning at 6:20. There's been a change in the pit lane as we just have a little bit of a lull in the proceedings. So Thierry Boyer in the Nordschleife racing car, number 172, is circulating. Obviously, this is at a much reduced pace and probably something like a third of racing speed, because I think we'd worked out, certainly at Brno, that in the A6 class, cars were capable of doing 180 kph average speed around the lap. Now this, on the face of it, might be a slightly slower track. We'd have to look at a good lap time and then work out what your average pace is at kph. But 60 Ks, regardless of where we go with this championship, is always the constant.
At
when
160.
160, okay. So it's just a little bit short, therefore, of the speed in Brno. Right, so whilst we enjoy, if you're keeping tuned to our coverage on the live stream, whilst we enjoy a little bit of onboard journey with Nordschleife Racing, and that comes to a close, let's head to the pits and Joe Bradley.
I've been trying to talk to this man pretty much since I got here this week. Charlie Putman, he's usually out in the CP Racing Car 85, the Mercedes. However, this weekend, Charlie, you're getting a chance to try the brand new AMG GT3 from Mercedes. The basic question is, what are the differences so far?
Well, first off, I have to say, I'm still driving my sweetheart over there.
I was going to come to that in a moment, yeah.
Okay, I'll let you cover that. But yeah, the differences in the car are relatively minor, but Mercedes decided they have a pretty good chassis and powertrain system, so rather than try to do a 3-year homologation complete change, they're going to stick with the same basic car, but do some upgrades. So it's basically an upgrade for 2020. Some aero differences in the front, slight changes cosmetically there. Also some aero changes in the rear. Things to make things easier for life for the technicians. The rear wing that's more precisely adjustable and quicker to adjust. The front air dam spoiler assembly is easier to replace. And for the team owners, some of the parts are a little less expensive. So like the headlight systems and that sort of thing. A few other technical issues, but nothing really major in the car. It's very close to the old car.
And how does it feel from the driver's perspective behind the wheel? Is there any major differences in how the car feels in comparison?
You know, my first impression was that the car felt really stable and really suited to maybe newer drivers. It's very friendly to drive. The performances or the differences are not so much in the performance of the car, but mainly in how the platform of the car feels, how comfortable and coupled it is to drive. So, yeah, the car is very nice to drive.
And the differences you've just mentioned there regarding this, you know, the ease of maintenance, the ease of service, the ease of adjustability, do you see that being a benefit over the course of a race? Do you see the development that they put into the car show it bearing fruit?
Oh, it'll have to. I mean, we're already looking at these, and just after a brief look at it, I said, No choice. We have to upgrade the cars. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, they put a gun to your head kind of thing and said, you haven't got a choice, you're going to have to upgrade.
It's a much better choice than having to buy an all-new chassis and new car. But yeah, so it's a very good change. I think it's a needed change. You know, everything moves ahead. The Porsches have moved ahead. The Audis have moved ahead. Everyone's moving ahead, and so you never stop in motorsports. You're always continually developing, and I think the fact that it's a relatively minor change to this car says that the car was a good one to start with.
So what we're going to see from you, Charlie, you're down to drive the 85, your normal CP Racing Mercedes. You're down to drive the 500. Where are we going to see Charlie Putman come race Saturday and Sunday?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be early on in the car. It's important for me to get those early couple of stints, you know, for points purposes, you know, for the team and for me. And so I'll drive a couple of stints in the 85. I'll come down here and probably be nighttime by the time I get into the 500 car for my first stint. And then we'll see where it goes from there. Like I say, every battle plan changes once the first shot is fired. So Nathan is working with the engineers here with Juan Carlos, and they're coordinating their driving schedules so they can sort of make it work out for me the best that we can.
Right, well, I know you're going to have great fun. You're driving 2 cars this weekend. You're really having a busman's holiday on this one.
Yeah, what could be better than driving a race car on a race weekend than driving 2 race cars on a weekend? So I've done it before on events where I was driving 2 cars in 2 different series, but I've never driven 2 cars in one race before, so this is a new one.
Just be careful you don't overtake yourself. I don't know how that'll work.
Oh no, if I catch myself, I'm definitely going to ask for a point by. So
yeah, absolutely. Great to talk to you, Charlie. I've been trying to catch up with Charlie and get his views on the new AMG GT3 all weekend, and there you have it.
Good stuff, and actually Charlie making a very good point there in that they don't have to buy a brand new car. I mean, we're raving about this GT3, the AMG GT3 Evo, but it is exactly that. It's an evolution, so you stick with your old Mercedes and just stick all the new bits on. So that is much more cost effective.
Maybe a little bit lost in translation with that. You did assume, didn't you, that, oh my God, it's a new car, they're going to go and buy a new car.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's an upgrade.
Yeah, and Audi did the same. They have an evolution of their old R8 LMS, and the 2019 version is the same chassis effectively, but with new bits, new developed parts that make the car more reliable potentially, but certainly quicker, I think, and possibly more easy to drive as well. And they've always said, drivers that I have spoken to about that original Mercedes AMG GT3, that it is very driver friendly. So without wanting to lose that, they'll just improve on the bits that they can improve on. And it's, you know, sharpening, to use one of Joe Bradley's phrases, sharpening the razor blade. You've already got a very good car. Let's make it even better with little incremental steps. That's good. That's it. I'm pleased he made that point, because they're going to get new customers, let's face it, that, you know, have raced other cars in the past and want to change completely, but at least it means not a massive outlay to current Mercedes customers too. Stefan Aust takes out the number 93 car, so that will be his 4 laps, won't it, in the number 93 Harebet Motorsport machine. Now the problem for Stefan is they won't be at racing speed, but they will still count. Will they, Paul, for your night qualifying?
Yeah. Yes, they will indeed. And in fact, he is the final of the 5 drivers of that 93. So they're just about, they were given 90 minutes. They've just about got all 5 of their drivers cycled through inside an hour. So Harebet Motorsport living up to their reputation of being efficient and doing exactly what they set out to do, getting all 5 of their drivers safely through and qualified under night laps.
That really backs up the point, though, that these laps are for reconnaissance rather than knowing the track at speed. I mean, I'd be slightly worried going into a 24-hour race and into a night stint if you hadn't done night laps at race pace.
It's one of those things. I kind of agree with you, but then a racing driver is a racing driver, and they're quite talented individuals, and they can drive, and they can carry on and do it. If you take
but you've got a rule that says you've got to do X amount of laps, and I know that's dependent on where you're racing, but the rule at Le Mans as well. At test weekend, you've got to do 10 laps. 5 of them must be from the start line across the start line. But they could be under a full course yellow, I think, is the regulation there.
Yes, I mean...
Which defies a point to me.
Well, yes, it does, but I think, you know, it's just as useful. You can't say to everybody's got to do some laps under code 60, because otherwise we'd be running through code 60 all night.
Yeah.
Equally, you can't say everybody's got to do all the laps under green flag, because otherwise, if you've planned your driving lineup to do what they've done, you can't say they have to be there during the green flag period. I mean, there are some events.
Like everything. They have to just do, it's like everything, really, isn't it? They have to adapt to the situation that they find themselves in. And as professional drivers, that's what you're doing. You're waiting for whatever action you need to take.
Absolutely. No, that's right.
Joe's very busy down in the pit lane, and the focus at the moment appears to be the Mark car. Have they got problems?
I'm not sure, but I'm with one of the drivers, Ricky Coomber, and this weekend has been a first. It's a weekend of first. Ricky Coomber got the beers in last night, which is quite something. Are you okay? You feeling okay?
I'm feeling faint now. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Right, serious stuff. Yeah. You're in your shorts and flip-flops. I take it you've done your night laps.
Yeah, I'm all done. That's it. Core's in there, last run, and then we might go to the bar buy a beer tonight.
I got them in. It's Johnny Palmer's turn, and I got the round as well. What's the problem, Ricky? The bonnet's off. They're looking at something. Do you know?
He just adjusted the lights, really. Just for, yeah, car's new, so it's, I suppose, first time it's running in the dark. So yeah, it's a few adjusting bits. That's it, really. But that car's good.
Ricky, you kind of turn up in all sorts of cars. Never the same car. I mean, we're familiar with you running your Honda. You've been in a TCR car. Now you're in a rear-engine monster. The mock car's tube frame. We talked to Jim Briodi earlier. This is a completely different beast. What's it like?
Yeah, no, it's just another challenge. Yeah, it's great. It's a good car to drive. It's forgiving, but it's quick. So yeah, but it's the heat's going to be the issue for the tyre wear. So it's going to be management. That's it.
When you say tyre wear, is that the rear tyres spinning them up?
Yeah.
So it's nothing to do with the heat. It's to do with that right foot that's in a flip-flop. You're not wearing your flip-flops in there, are you?
I might have to.
You might. Now, you're in the car with Kurt Oiser. You're already... Jim Briodi is into his 98th 24-hour race. I mean, what's it like to be in a car with the legend that is Kurt Oiser? Have you had a chance to overlay your data and see how much later you can brake, for instance?
Yeah, we've done that, yeah. I mean, obviously, Core is, obviously always going to be the quickest out of all of us. There's no two ways about that. But, yeah, we're the other three of us, we're thereabouts within each other. So we've just got to bridge the gap with Core now, really. So, yeah.
Where's he gaining the time on you guys? Have you been able to establish that? Don't say everywhere.
He's just got a heavier foot. Yeah. Probably a bit more balanced now. He's quick through a few bits, yeah, but we'll bridge the gap tomorrow. So
Portimao is a very, very technical track. There's lots of braking areas that lead into corners, that lead into other corners. I would imagine with the amount of power you've got under your right foot, very tricky getting out of these tight hairpins.
Yeah, that's the thing, is getting the balance, really. But yeah, we're not far away.
That thing just fired up and I got a shock. It's very rare I get a shock. I've just got a shock. The ground shook there. That's fantastic. I love those cars.
You want to hear the noise in the car. It's just as bad, yeah. Yeah.
You're going to be okay with the heat and stuff? I mean, the engine's in front of you. It's going to be a warm weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it should be all good. I'm more than happy, really. We've run well. We've run on old tyres since we've been here. Good for car control, and we'll see what it goes like tomorrow with some new rubber on it. So obviously, Core had new rubber for qualifying, but that's what all we run, really. So yeah. So race pace on old tyres looks pretty good. So
I mentioned earlier, I mean, you wouldn't think it looking at you, but it's gotten quite chilly. And the ambient temperature's come down, the track temperature's going to come down. Is that going to help you with regards to the tyre wear?
Yeah, it will do. But it's just the day running where, as you know, in the morning it just rose from morning to midday, and then to late afternoon it just goes from one extreme to the other. So we was forever like dropping tyre pressures yesterday to chasing it basically. So yeah, so see how it goes.
Okay, mate, I'll see you in the bar.
Yeah. Tell you what, Joe.
Well done. Hang on, just want to say something.
No, I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk to Ricky necessarily. I want you to.
Oh no, he doesn't need you. You can go.
Happy hour, yeah.
So
the other thing I want to
ordering.
the other thing I want to do, Paul, is that between the two of you, yes,
go down to the back and interview Cor Oyser, because he's standing there, Joe, with his hands on his hips. I think you'll be able to get the microphone under his helmet.
This Cor Oyser, you mean?
And they always say
CJ can't do that, but I'll get a word with Cor. So, Cor, how's the car going?
Right, it's got all right. Yeah, it's fine.
No, he's not one to talk to us. He's not one to talk to us.
They always have said about Cor Oyser, he looks fast when he's standing still.
You know what?
Doesn't he just?
You know what? You're going to get me in trouble with Cor. When he comes in, we'll try. Well, sometime across the weekend, we'll stand them side by side, and we'll see who's the tallest.
It's going to be tight, isn't it? I think. And that's not to do with perspective, just because that figure of Cor Oyser, and that didn't work brilliantly on radio, I appreciate. However, there is a sort of mock Cor Oyser that they bring to the race meetings every single time, and he stands about 4 foot tall and is the mascot of the team.
Do you know, I've never seen that before.
It's there.
I don't know how I missed it.
Every time.
Oh, maybe it's because I'm short too.
The trouble is that Cor has changed his helmet design since that model was made, and so the real Cor Oyser is now not wearing Cor Oyser's helmet. So when Joe does get Cor out of the car, it's...
There are certain members of our team that would really upset about helmet colours.
Well, quite.
But
yes.
we shall mention not a bit further. We'll have a catch up with Cor Oyser just as soon as he's done with that stint. In fact, the car's back in the pits. I noticed the 717.
Yes, just did one lap after he shocked Joe.
You know why?
Cor went out
because his ears were burning.
Came straight back in again. Yeah. And we have to say hello to Ivo Broikers as well, because he's been listening and thanked us for the kind words. So good luck in Greece, Ivo. Enjoy your holiday.
Well, it's been 33 degrees in Zurich today, so goodness knows what sort of temperature they've hit in Greece. I hope it's a warm one for Ivo Breakers, as we get an absolute best final sector this time from the number 11 Ferrari. So if nothing's changed after Josef Kral's earlier lap, I reckon the 11 could hang on to the first sector and the last sector's absolute best times.
Well, it has changed already, hasn't it, Johnny? Because Matteo is now third fastest, and he wasn't as far up as that before, because the 500 Mercedes and the GPX Porsche were quicker than him. So Matteo has improved the time with that purple sector in Sector 3 at 1:46.867 for Matteo Malicelli. Puts him half a second off the fastest in this night qualifying session. Which just goes to show how well Creventic does the balancing performance. You've got Porsche, an Audi and a Ferrari all within half a second of each other. The 93 car still relying on that time from Klaus Bachler earlier on, 46.312. The Max Edelhoff time in the car collection motorsport Audi of 1:46.578, and then the Malicelli Ferrari time just set of 1:46.867.
Rodri Guillon in the middle of a bit of a drama at turn 5. Oh, the car is moving again now. This is the number 1 Pro Sport Performance Aston Martin Vantage, which ground to a halt just before the end of Sector 1. No, actually later in the lap than that, isn't it? Because it's a right-hander next. However, well, the message on my screen said it was...
Turn 5,
yeah.
the hairpin.
Yeah, but that's not where he'd stopped.
Okay.
It sort of looked like the car stopped, didn't it? It just came to a stop.
Yeah.
They'd obviously fired it up again, and off it went.
Whether it was a problem that first hit at turn 5 and then continued around a bit further towards turn 6 and 7. Anyway, the yellow flags covered it, and it's going again now, but that might just be a classic turn it off, turn it back on again, and fingers crossed the issue's gone.
I mean, this presumably is the stint that Rodrigue was describing to you, Di, as being him supposed to be in the car for half an hour to get some laps in and to get himself familiar with the car, because they lost so much time during the free practice session earlier today.
Best laid plans and all that. Still not really seen Pedro Lamy do an awful lot, although he has just gone quickest of the 417 drivers, 417 numbered car, Team Virage, which is another Aston Martin Vantage AMR, but that car is still propping up the GT Series field. And the better time coming from the Portuguese, actually, has he just had that time taken away from it? No, what's happened is Lamy's come around to do another lap, which is slower, but the previous lap still stands. 1:58.924. And that compares to the fastest GT4 car, which is the sister machine. So that's encouraging for Aston Martin fans. The #1 car of Rodrigue Guillon is the fastest of the 4 GT4 entered cars. And Johnny De Broeke now at the wheel of the 454 QSR Racing Score Mercedes, which is one of the SPX GT4s. That car actually fastest in that class now, from the Dominic Baumann driven 710, which is the Lippert AMG GT4. Meanwhile, in the TCE category, well, 188, the AC Motorsport car, is significantly quicker than the other machines in that race, in fact, because into the late 156s has gone the Belgian Audi RS3 LMS, when everybody else is in the low, or rather the high 158s. Yes, there's a couple of seconds between them.
Yeah, Mathieu Detry, who did that fast time, 156.978. Interesting that neither Stefan Perrin or James Kay has got underneath 2 minutes. So quite possibly the fact that it was daylight and Mathieu got the new set of tyres, the explanation for that. But Mathieu, a bit like the other, he's the teenager, we decided, wasn't he, in the 188 car.
I haven't had all the data burst through yet, and
right.
Detry is still a bit of a blind spot for me.
Okay.
But I'm going to guess he's younger than Sam de Jonge.
De Jonge. So Detry is de Jonge of the 2.
Yes. Di's met him, and he looks very young.
Detry is de Jonge of the 2.
Very good, Paul. Hey, he might be late at night, but he's still on the ball.
Not quite sure how that one got in there. Anyway, so James Kay, we still haven't had De Jonge behind the wheel of it this evening. The car is in the pits, and we've still got just over a quarter of an hour of the session still to go. And who's second in TCR is the Baz Kooten Cooper, isn't it? 131. And then the Nordschleife Racing Peugeot.
Yep.
In the TCE division. Federico Lamy goes quicker. You mentioned his name, and he goes quicker, so wave your flags. Aston Martin fans. 417 actually goes to 18th place overall, and that car, both Aston Martins at least in GT4, quicker than the BMW or Mercedes in the GT4 class. So the Pucker GT4 cars, the Park Algar Mercedes of number 412 and the 50 BMW GT4, not as quick as either of the 2 Aston Martins. So it's looking good for Aston in GT4 once the cars get going, but just a little bit of a question mark over their reliability, I think, judging from the limited running that they've had in the practice sessions.
Yes, and early on in the day, I don't think either Aston was particularly happy, or certainly the teams looking after them weren't happy about throwing the cars out for a prolonged stint. That might be, they may be slightly happy about that situation now. In 2017, I reckon Mathieu Detry was 20, so he's early 22, 23-ish.
Right.
Hopefully I'll get a bit closer once I've got all the relevant information.
So I think James Kay might have been exaggerating a little bit when he said he was old enough to be both of their grandfather. Because I think he said grandfather rather than father.
He did? Yeah, he did.
And James Kay...
Maybe he just feels a lot older than he actually is.
I do know the feeling, yes. There are times when I feel older.
But I think Mathieu's done a bit of Fun Cup racing as well, which is obviously very big in Belgium, and the TCR Benelux Championship too. So we're getting some hot shoes to come out of the new, relatively new formula for touring cars these days, which has taken over the world very, very quickly, and is now the regs that dictate the world touring cars of old. It's now called the World TCR Championship. And I believe they've got around the next round of their championship this weekend in Portugal, somebody told me, Villarreal. Anyway, Stefan Aust is still at the wheel of the fastest car of the session. The BMW 240i is in the pit lane and receiving some attention. One or two puzzled looks at that crew. Joe will be not very far away as well, maybe looking to lend some advice, are you, Joe? Any clue what's going on?
Yeah, light adjustments.
Oh, fine.
Just adjusting the headlights.
It was just that kind of furrowed brow of one or two of the mechanics, but I think they were just after the right tool for the job.
Yeah, probably.
Is it
got a T-handled Allen key in there, where I think he's trying to see something. I'm not sure if the lights may be vibrating. He's trying to secure it.
Is it clockwise to make the lights go up, or anti-clockwise to make the lights go up? He's saying.
Yeah.
Yes, probably.
Because how are those lights adjusted then? Because you actually have to, you know, physically manipulate the lens, or is it just a case of turning an Allen key? I bet you don't know.
I'm going to.
That's the question.
Nicole Holzer is the driver that just got out the car. I'm going to see if she had a problem with the lights.
When you're ready.
Car's on its way anyway.
It is.
Yeah, I'm not sure she wants to talk to me.
Not for the first time.
Yeah. I think she's a bit shy.
Okay.
Nicky Pastorelli's gone second quickest.
He has.
1:46.397. So 2 Porsches, first and second, Johnny.
And David Perrell's time's not too shabby either. A 1:46.5. So that's only a couple of tenths slower than Pastorelli's effort. So yeah, Porsche livening up all of a sudden, and now the Ferrari from Wochenspiegel, Team Monschau. Third fastest.
And that's a long stint from David Perrell as well. He's on the 10th lap of his stint, so can't blame new tyres. Can't give credit to him for new tyres. That's a lap done with relatively well-used tyres. Malicelli in the other Ferrari, Matteo Malicelli in the number 11 Scuderia Praha car, has done his laps and decided to hand the car back to Jiri Pisaric, who drove the car at the start of this session, when of course it wasn't properly dark. So now it is properly dark, and an opportunity for Pisaric to just make sure that the Ferrari, Scuderia Praha Ferrari's lights are to his liking as well.
The car you hear in the background is that of Nicky Pastorelli, the GPX Racing Porsche, which has been getting quicker and quicker through the course of the session. I think Jordan Groger will be happy now that he's put in some decent laps during this session when he didn't do any running in free practice at all. We're wondering whether there's now a problem for the 131 Cupra, which is in the fueling area. And as we've already stated earlier on in the day, quite tricky to get in and out of this fueling area. But was there a lick of flame a moment or two ago from this car? Can't see anything untoward now. And the 131 car is the Top Car Sport by Bas Kouten Racing entered Cupra, with the Portuguese flag is part of the number panel, isn't it, this weekend? So
yes.
Every car is carrying that. That's not an indication of the nationality of the team. They are Swiss, in fact, although Bas Kouten is very much Dutch. And not here this weekend, sadly. He must be busy elsewhere, but his team, which is getting larger and larger, and certainly very well practiced now in preparing a Cupra, and the odd Seat here and there as well, he can happily allow his big team to look after themselves and prepare these cars for various teams, including Top Car Sport. So any drama there has now come to an end, and the car rejoins the race. And we are now into just the final 11 minutes of the session. So we'll get one or two takers, I'm sure.
And still quite a high turnout.
Yeah.
Lots of laps still being done. And as we were saying a moment ago, quicker ones, and indeed a quicker one still. I was saying quick laps still possible. Nicky Pastorelli goes fastest of all at 1:46.227. Not as quick as qualifying was, but Nicky Pastorelli then 1:46.227. Goes over a tenth, no, just under a tenth faster than the Klaus Bacher Porsche did right at the beginning of the session.
And qualifying earlier on for that car saw the 24 machine qualified third with a 1:44.8. So yeah, we're quite a way off qualifying pace, but if there's a fair bit of fuel on board that number 24 Porsche, then that will be a good time for Pastorelli. And remember, it's an A6 Pro car, so he's up against the 22 Wochenspiegel Ferrari the number 11 Scuderia Praha 488, and the 91 and 17 Porsche and Mercedes from Herbert and Edex Sport, respectively. Joe's still beavering hard down in the pit lane, seeing who he can chat to. Still plenty of activity on the track, and I think there is in the pit lane, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the teams haven't gotten through their job list. The 676 Synchro Honda already in the garage, being tucked up for bed. Martin Byford, firstly, Martin, welcome back. Where have you been? We've missed you at the 24.
I've missed being here. It's fantastic to be back involved with Creventic and the 24-hour series and Synchro Motorsport.
The saying is, it only takes 2 cars to make a motor race. You've got 2 cars in here, 3, but boy, are you boys close.
Yeah, we were quite close in qualifying, quite close in practice, and now we're close again tonight. So race on.
It really is. So, does that change everything? How you approach tomorrow? Are you going to be dragged into a race with that BMW?
We haven't raced here before, so we don't really know what our race pace is, genuinely. So tomorrow, the first stint is going to tell us exactly where we sit against those guys, and we'll kind of play it from there. Yeah, we need to settle ourselves into a decent rhythm. So we're not going to burn our tyres up within 40 minutes. You know, we want to stretch them out to our 2 hours if we possibly can, and still do some decent lap times. So by the end of stint 2 tomorrow, so maybe 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, I think we'll have a very good idea whether we can be competitive with them or we can beat them.
And it's going to be hotter tomorrow, Martin. You're very experienced with front-wheel drive. It's the front tyres you have to look after, but how as a driver can we use the term look after the tyres. Surely you're going as quickly as you possibly can. How do you look after your tyres?
Well, in a front-wheel drive car like this, we've got plenty of horsepower. We can kill our front tyres in 30 minutes. If you go out and drive it as fast as it will go, they'll be gone in 30 minutes, and you've got an hour and a half of suffering, and probably doing lap times that will be at least 10 seconds off the pace. So for us, it's a matter of trying to be as smooth as you possibly can, stay away from the curves where you can, manage the time loss as the GT cars coming through, which is a big deal for us. We are the slowest class on circuit. So if we can allow a car through, not cost us any time, there's maybe a time gain against our competitors on that. So all the time you're trying to do those sorts of things and look after the tyres and trying to be smooth. So yeah, there's a lot to go on.
And when you add into the mix that your competitor in A3 is a completely different configuration. It's a rear-wheel drive BMW. It's not like you can manage your front tyres better than your competitor. It's just you've got to play your own game.
Yeah. Once we settle into that race pace and we know what we can achieve over probably the first hour is going to tell us quite a lot. We'll start to get some feedback from the driver in the first hour. If he feels he's got plenty of grip left at an hour in, well, we can press on a little more. So we're going to have to kind of take a bit of a punt on it to begin with, and then we'll find out. But yeah, you're right. The 2 cars couldn't be much different, and yet they do such similar lap times. We just do it in a different way.
Have you been here before?
No.
So, what's your thoughts, Martin Byford?
What a fantastic circuit. Yeah, it's like a roller coaster, except you're in control.
Yeah, I call it a white-knuckle roller coaster of a ride. Is it pretty much that?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, the layout is awesome. The elevation change in the blind corners adds elements into it that you don't get anymore. You get a little bit of Alton Park or maybe Donington Park in the UK. And other than that, most modern circuits are fairly flat. As interesting as they can be, you don't get that elevation change, and that really adds a real bit of spice to it here.
I'm sure you'll enjoy. I knew when I saw you on the entry list, I thought Byford's going to love this track. Great to talk to you, Martin. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the grid. Thanks, Martin.
Former Clio UK champion, former Mazda MX-5 champion, former Super Coupe Cup champion if you go back far enough, and last in the Creventic race series last year at Barcelona when he turned up with BPM Racing in the TCR category for just a single race. But great to have Martin Byford back in the Creventic ranks. Meanwhile, it's changed again at the sharp end, Paul Truswell, because we have another new name at the top of the times.
Well, who's quicker? Is it Robert or is it Alfred for an hour? Because Robert is the one who's the pro driver. Alfred is defined as the semi-pro, but Alfred has been fastest now, not once, not twice, yeah, it is twice actually. Sorry, it was because his last lap was a 1:58. So Alfred Renauer coming back into the pits now, having done 2 laps faster than anybody else. Finishing up on a 1:45.143. He did a 1:45.9 and then got it down to a 1:45.143. And I have to say, because it's Alfred Renauer, we have to say which car it is, because that doesn't identify it.
True.
94 is the car that Alfred Renauer has just gone quickest in, and that's an AM, and yet another AM car, and a car that doesn't even have the benefit of having a pro in it, whereas the other 2 Hairbear cars, 91 has the pro driver Robert Renauer, and it's a pro lineup. 93 has a pro in it because Klaus Bachler is a pro driver, but he has, as I say, as the pro driver, not gone as quickly as Alfred has. So hats off to Alfred Renauer. He's just taken the number 94 car to not pole position, but to fastest in this night qualifying.
You see, being down in the garage earlier, there seems like there's a really healthy competition down in that garage. Obviously, we've got some good drivers in those cars, but they're definitely up for the challenge of pushing each other.
It is, and I mean, twins do tend to be competitive amongst each other. I mean, the Renauers have been racing together for a long, long time. Been racing apart as well. They've done quite a lot of racing where Robert's been doing one series. He's been doing Creventic races. Alfred's been doing the AMG GT3 races. So we've had quite a few Creventic races where we've had Alfred, we've not had Robert, and vice versa. We've had Robert and we haven't had Alfred. So good to have them both here, and all of them driving the 91 car, as is their wont. But same with Alfred on the driving strength of the 94. That was a really good lap from him there. The green identification lights in the middle of the headlights on the 94 car. The 91 car has the red identification lights on it, and the 93, as Johnny was telling us earlier on, is the white and red car, which is doesn't look like a Hairbear car at all in a way, because it's a completely different design. So nice onboard shots coming from Luke Breukers at the wheel of the Red Camel Jordans.NL Supra. Just coming down into the left-hander at turn 5, the hairpin, and then up the hill past the VIP tower on his way, keeping over to the left-hand side of the circuit. And even though you're wanting to move across to the right, you need to stay on the left-hand side because there's another right-hander coming up. Then that's followed by a double right, and then this brow of the hill. You can't see anything in daylight, let alone when it's dark, but then once you're over the hill, you can see the track inviting you to just accelerate as you go downhill, and then up the hill again through that very, very fast left-hander, accelerating all the time, and then hard on the brakes. And Luke having to apex the double right again, very early indeed, and then once again over another brow before moving back to the right-hand side of the circuit for entry into the next left-hander, and up the hill towards the final turn before swinging back onto the start-finish straight to start another lap.
There are quite a few bits of that lap that look like others, though, and I think in the darkness, when your concentration's just starting to wane, you're going to start double thinking.
I mean, the concentration levels that you have to have are enormous, aren't they?
Yeah.
We can see from the driver's eyes when we were able to see some of the onboards, the concentration they've got. But as you say, I think some of the drivers have described this as a bit of a roller coaster circuit, and you can really see that more at night time when you're watching any of the onboard. If you're watching the live stream here, you can see the onboard footage. You really get a sense of it then.
Well, I think, Paul, you've made the point of, you get to some of the crests and you think, is it a left or a right next?
Yeah.
And you just have to have faith that nobody's moved the track since a lap ago.
I mean, racing drivers are a bit like actors. Actors have to learn their lines, and so do racing drivers.
True, yeah.
And once you do learn the line, you know where the corners are coming up. You know which part of the circuit you need to be on. You know roughly where you're going to be turning the steering wheel and how much you're going to be turning the steering wheel. You know where the car is likely to break away and where it's not likely to break away. And actually, when it's dark, you know, that's kind of, you're relying on even more of those sensors, the muscle memory of where you're turning, than you do when it's daylight, because, you know, you've done it before when it's daylight. I think the hard bit is when you're stepping into the car in the middle of a nighttime session, and then you go out after you've had a rest. You know, you then have to kind of really switch your racing brain on and get out. And, you know, the trouble is when you're in the race situation, you can't have a couple of laps to dial yourself in. You've got to be right on it straight away. And that's what characterises the good racing drivers.
And that's also then down to good team management, knowing, you know, who needs, as the checkered flag is waved, a little bit of lead-in time, I suppose. So, you know, your lesser experienced drivers want to have had fairly recent stints in familiar situations.
And I guess that's where the team manager or whoever ends up calling the strategy decides which driver's going at what time, so they know they're going to get the best from each driver, so they can, you know, have their overnight strategy. Yeah,
and then there are certain drivers that just, you know, you can plug and play. You know the track, it doesn't matter whether it's light or dark, you know you're going to get good lap times out of them. And there are others that you have to sort of gently work them. They'll get to the lap time eventually, but it's about coaching them through it and giving them the best experience possible leading up to that. I'm noticing Peter Terting is putting in some good late laps here in the number 15 Mercedes that was very, very good in earlier sessions, the Top Sport WRT car. And we might be about to see an even better lap from the German this time around. He's due across the line in the next 10 seconds, but a 1:46.769 is the number 15 car's best time so far, and set very, very late on lap 31 of a session that has almost run its course. It started at 9 o'clock local time, and yes, that was further improvement for Peter Terting. Not positionally, but it brings the lap time down to a mid 1:46 now. And are we again in a situation where a small amount of time spans a considerable amount of cars? Well, yeah, actually the biggest margin is the second at the top of the times between Alfred Renauer's effort, a 1:45.1, and Nicky Pastorelli's 1:46.2. But after that, down to 2 seconds, you're looking at another, what, 7 or 8? Well, it's actually 7 cars, isn't it? From the 24 machine down to the 500 SP4 Mercedes, last driven by Maxi Book. And in fact, Book did take the checkered flag out on the track, I'll assume, with everybody else going into the pit lane. And there are 1 or 2 dummy driver changes taking place now as well, with no intention of teams heading back out again. You can't, because the pit lane's effectively closed, the end of it. But there is a good excuse to practice a driver change, and that's exactly what GP Extreme or GPX Racing are doing. So it's a really smart garage, isn't it, GPX Racing?
I mean, their boards and the way that they've set up that is very nicely done indeed. They've got an area for guests to come down the left-hand side, so that they can obviously entertain their guests and give them a close-up view of what goes on in the garage. They've got very nice little places where the drivers can put their helmets and little slots for all of that. And then around the back of it all is a proper office area where they have all the computers and various screens that they have to run the team. So yeah, it's good viewing. But and they've got a very high-tech gantry which lights up above the car as well.
Yes. So yeah, that's the thing I was drawn to, because certainly not every team has got that. But that's a little bit like
it's almost Formula One standard gantry. That.
Or I was thinking Toyota at Le Mans and Porsche and Audi of old at Le Mans with that.
I've got to say, there's quite a few teams actually. Just walking up and down the pit lane and having a look in each of the garages, there's a lot of teams that have really, they've changed. They look, you know, everything's brighter and louder and more branded. So I guess that's the way of the corporate world. But actually, it's nice to see.
And it shows that the business model of a lot of these teams must be working, because slowly they can invest in slightly better things. And it's just like we're talking about the Mercedes Evolution car, where you evolve your team through the course of several years sometimes. So GPX Racing busy with driver changes, and this looks all part of the plan, Joe, just to make sure that everything is well rehearsed and not left to chance tomorrow.
all right, the 24 Porsche might not be the quickest car here, but I think over a race distance, it's this kind of attention to detail with regards to how you change the drivers, and everybody knows exactly what they're doing and when to do it. This all shaves time, and it was, I think it was Paul earlier who was describing Mark Lemmer, describing his race at, would it be Mugello?
Hello, yeah.
When it cost them time because they come from a series where there's a designated obligatory time that you have to take for the pit stop, whereas in this series it's as quick as you can do it, and they were caught out massively because they're used to doing it without any pressure. Well, the pressure's on, and you know what, you gain or lose a second in this process. You try and gain a second out on the track against a competitor that's as equal on performance, and it's virtual impossibility, and you can just lose or gain so much when the attention to detail in the pit work is done. And that's what we're seeing the GPX team do with this Gulf livery Porsche.
Yeah, and most impressive, that team has raced a variety of machinery through the course of their history, but officially United Arab Emirates by nationality. That's how the team are flagged, but there are Frenchmen there, Rolf Goethe of Germany, with still a big interest in that team, I believe. And Jean-Pierre Valentini is one of the drivers. I think he's also someone who takes a management role as well, and just caught sight of Valentini in the back of the garage, not partaking in the driving changes there. So we'll allow them to continue deep into the night if necessary, switching drivers, making sure that they are happy. And we can remind you then who was quickest in that night free practice session. The number 94 car, beg your pardon, in TCE, let's do the TCE series cars first of all. The number 188 machine, Fastest, the AC Motorsport Audi RS3 LMS. That car will also be on pole position in the TCE race tomorrow. From the number 131 Cupra of Top Car Sport by Baz Kooten Racing. We feared there may be something amiss in the fueling area for that car, but all seemed to be well towards the end. The Volkswagen Golf Autorama Motorsport by Wolf Power Racing has good single lap speed this weekend, and remember, they are definitely one of the championship protagonists, having scored well in all of the races so far in 2019. That's the 112 car, third fastest. From the 172 Nordschleifer Racing entered Peugeot 308, the Red Camel Jordans.NL number 101 Cupra, and then the two A3 cars, Hoffer Racing by Bonk Motorsport. The number 869 BMW was faster than Synchro Motorsport's Honda FK8 number 676. And in the GT series, it was, leaving it very, very late, Alfred Renauer in the number 94 car, posting the best time of a 90-minute night practice session. That's an A6 AM car, but could be in the reckoning come the final shake-up. Bear in mind, though, there are AM drivers that have to do at least half of the race in that team makeup. Alfred Renauer, the semi-pro. Car 94 finishing fastest by a second, mind, ahead of the GPX Racing Porsche, the Herbert Motorsport number 93 Porsche, which is the white car in amongst that team. Then the first non-911 GT3 is the Wochenspiegel Team Monschau Ferrari, ahead of the Audi from Car Collection Motorsport number 34. It's a Mercedes sixth quickest. In SP4, the only SP4 car, the 500, surprise, surprise, was fastest, but 8th overall. And then the CP Racing A6 AM car, number 85, 9th ahead of the other Herbert Motorsport car, 10th. And outside of the top 10 is where we find the classes. Quickest in the 991 division for Porsche Cup cars were Porsche Lorient Racing, number 911. The fastest SPX car in night practice was the QSR Racing School Mercedes AMG GT3. That's the 454 car from, also in that class, the Lippert Motorsport Merc. In GT4, it was a fastest time for Pro Sport Performance with their number 1 Aston Martin Vantage, the AMR GT4, ahead of Team Virage's example of the same bit of kit. And then the Hoffer Racing by Bonk Motorsport car was third fastest in GT4. And there'll be one final car on the final slate, and that will be in 21st position, the Park Algar Racing Team's Mercedes, also a GT4 car, number 412. And that car did 29 laps. I was fearful that it hadn't done a great deal of mileage, but actually they did put in plenty of miles in this latter session, including cycling through Pedro Lamy and Joaquim Pentado, who is the Brazilian, doing some action in the 4-1-2 machine. So plenty happening in night practice, and this an opportunity for everyone, of course, to get up to speed in these evening and overnight conditions. 90 minutes of night practice, kicked off with the track becoming very, very busy indeed. And in fact, this was very early on, with the 9 o'clock session starting in close to daylight, just a couple of minutes after official sunset on Friday night. Bear in mind, it's 3 minutes to 9 tomorrow night, but the sky does retain a lot of its light for a good hour and a half after that. We are at full darkness now at 10:30, but the Mark II V8 flame spitting its way around this 4.6 kilometre circuit, and everybody getting the required amount of mileage in ahead of what will be a very, very busy 24 hours starting at midday tomorrow. It'll be a long time until sunset for these runners, and then even when you get to daybreak on Sunday morning, you'll still have a further 6 hours or so to go. But crucially, I don't think we had any dramas for any of the runners, and actually some better news, far better news, for the 94 Porsche, which had a clutch failure which put it out of qualifying, but those at Herbert Motorsport will be most encouraged by the speed it showed tonight in night practice. A 145.1 is very respectable for an A6 AM car. Lights focusing adjustment is also something that you need to be wary of, and being able to pick out the reference points, the marshal posts, and it is very, very gloomy in certain areas around this track, so being able to work out where the warning points are is highly important. So that's us just about done for Friday. We move into tomorrow with our coverage ahead of a 12 p.m. start. So the stream will go live at 11:30. We will be live on RS1 and RS3, of course, as well as part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels. You can listen in radio, in audio only, but we will also have the live stream married up perfectly with the Radio Show Limited audio for you to enjoy the race in full. So 11:30 is the build-up, and the race begins at midday, and they race all the way through till Sunday afternoon, also at midday. Be sure to stick with us for the rest of our coverage. My thanks to Joe Bradley, who did the latter stint in the pit lane, to Diana Binks, who did the first one, and to Paul Truswell, and to all involved as well at 0221, our production company. It just remains for me to say, have a very pleasant evening, a little bit of sleep, because you won't get much tomorrow night, and join us again from 11:30 local time for the latest round of the Hankook 24-hour series. We'll see you then.
Welcome to the endurance racing series for GT and touring cars, with the champion of the continent, European Championship, TCR Spa 500 and TCR Middle East. That's 12 races across 3 continents. The best endurance racing experience for everyone. Welcome to the world of endurance. Series Endurance.